I thought we shared everything. But I never knew she was sharing my face, my name, and my entire life. Subscribe to my channel for a new story every single day. My name is Charlotte, and for 36 years, my life was beautifully, predictably normal. I'm a freelance graphic designer, married to my college sweetheart Ben, and mother to a hilarious 6-year-old Lily. The one constant through it all has been my best friend, Chloe. We met in high school, two awkward girls who became sisters. We knew everything about each other, or so I thought. The first sign that something was wrong was a phone call from my bank's fraud department. A credit card I rarely used had been declined for a suspicious purchase at a high-end boutique 2 states away. Must be a mistake, I told the agent, dismissing it. A glitch in the system. A week later, I received an email confirmation for a hotel reservation in a city I'd never visited. Then a speeding ticket arrived in the mail from a town 4 hours north. The photo from the traffic camera was grainy, but the woman in the driver's seat had my blonde hair, my build, and was driving a car identical to my gray SUV. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a glitch. This was targeted. Ben, someone is pretending to be me, I said, my voice shaking as I showed him the ticket. He frowned, examining the photo. Charlotte, that looks exactly like you. Are you sure you didn't take a trip you forgot to tell me about? He was joking, but his eyes were worried. I spent the next day on the phone, freezing my credit, changing passwords, and filing a report with the police. It felt like chasing a ghost. That evening, exhausted and scared, I went to Chloe's apartment. She was my sanctuary. I poured a large glass of wine and spilled the whole terrifying story. Her reaction was off. Instead of the outrage and sympathy I expected, she grew very still. Her face, usually so expressive, became a careful mask. That's insane, she said, her voice a little too high. Who would do that? It must be some kind of identity theft ring. But they look like me, Chloe. The traffic camera photo? Those cameras are terrible, she said quickly, waving a dismissive hand. It's probably just a coincidence. A woman with a similar car and hair. She changed the subject, asking about Lily's school play, her usual warmth feeling forced. I left her apartment feeling more unsettled than when I'd arrived. A tiny, insane thought began to worm its way into my mind. The coincidences were piling up. The purchases were at stores Chloe loved. The hotel was in a city she'd talked about visiting. The timing of the incidents often coincided with times she said she was out of town visiting family. The thought was too monstrous to entertain. This was Chloe. My Chloe. Driven by a sickening mix of doubt and determination, I did something I never thought I would. I went to a private investigator. His name was Frank, a grizzled man with kind eyes. I showed him everything. It's probably not your friend, he said gently, seeing the distress on my face. But we'll rule it out. He put a tracker on my car with my permission to see if it was being copied. He also began digging into the digital footprints of the impersonator. 2 days later, Frank called me, his voice grim. Charlotte, you need to come to my office, now. When I arrived, he had a series of photos spread across his desk. They were clear, high-resolution images from a luxury mall's security cameras. They showed me shopping, trying on clothes, and paying with a credit card. But it wasn't me. The woman moved with a confidence I'd never possessed, her posture different, her smile sharper. She was wearing a dress I owned but was sure was hanging in my own closet. That's not me, I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. I know, Frank said softly. He zoomed in on one of the photos. The woman was holding the credit card. Frank enhanced the image. On her wrist was a distinctive silver bracelet with a small engraved heart. My world shattered into a million pieces. I had given Chloe that bracelet for her 30th birthday. The inscription read, C&C, Sisters Forever. The impersonator wasn't a stranger. She wasn't a random identity thief. The woman living my life, spending my money, and wearing my face was my best friend. The betrayal was so complete, so personal, it felt like a physical wound. I had shared my deepest secrets with her, my joys, my fears. And for how long had she been planning to become me? I stumbled out of the investigator's office, the photos burning a hole in my bag. The bright sunshine felt obscene. How could the world look so normal when mine had just been ripped apart? I drove home on autopilot, my mind replaying 20 years of friendship. The sleepovers, the failed diets, holding her hair back when she got sick at a college party, her being my maid of honor, the way she cried when Lily was born. Had any of it been real? Or was it all just research for the role she was now playing? When I walked into my house, Ben was in the kitchen making lunch for Lily. The normalcy of the scene was a punch to the gut. "Hey, honey," he said, smiling. "How did it go with the investigator?" I couldn't speak. I just opened my bag and slid the enhanced photo across the counter, my finger pointing to the bracelet. Ben picked it up, his brow furrowed. Then his face went pale. No way. That's impossible. That's Chloe's bracelet. It must be a copy." "It's not a copy, Ben," I said, my voice hollow. "I had it custom made. There is no other one." The realization dawned on him slowly, then all at once. His expression shifted from disbelief to horror, and then to a cold, hard anger I had never seen in him before. "She's been in our home. She's held our daughter. What the hell is she playing at?" That was the question. What was her endgame? This wasn't just about credit card fraud. This was an elaborate, long-term invasion. I thought of all the times she'd borrowed my keys just to water the plants. The times she'd lost her phone and used mine to make calls. Had she been installing spyware? Copying documents? We had to be smart. We couldn't confront her yet. We had no idea how deep this went. We decided to play along, to gather evidence. I called her, forcing a cheerful tone into my voice. "Hey, Chloe!" "Just checking in. This identity theft thing has me so paranoid." Her voice was smooth, dripping with fake concern. "Oh, honey, I've been so worried about you. Any news?" "Not really," I lied. "The police said it could take a while. It's just so creepy thinking someone out there looks like me." There was the briefest pause. "Yeah, creepy." We hung up and I felt filthy. The performance had begun. With Frank's help, we dug deeper. He accessed security camera footage from our own neighborhood. We saw Chloe's car, a different model and color from mine, driving past our house at odd hours. We saw her on multiple occasions taking pictures of our home, of Ben leaving for work, of me playing with Lily in the yard. Then Frank found the kicker. Using the information from the tracker on my car, he discovered that my car had never left the city. But Chloe's car had. The toll booth records and traffic camera hits for my car matched the movements of Chloe's vehicle. She had stolen my license plate. She wasn't just using my identity online. She was physically transforming into me, driving around as me, building a verifiable history of Charlotte being in places I had never been. The most chilling discovery was a fake driver's license. Frank managed to find a digital copy of in a hidden online forum she frequented. The license had my name, my address, but her photo. She had perfected my signature. She had become me. The pieces were forming a terrifying picture. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. This was a long con. She was creating a parallel life, a double who could seamlessly step into my shoes. But why? To steal my money? My family? My entire existence? The fear was no longer about stolen credit. It was about the safety of my daughter, my husband, and my own life. My best friend of 20 years wasn't just a betrayer. She was a predator who had been studying her prey for decades. And she was ready to strike. Living a double life, pretending to be oblivious while knowing the terrifying truth, was a special kind of hell. Every text from Chloe felt like a snake slithering through my phone. Every thinking of you message was a lie. I had to consciously stop myself from scanning her wrists for the heart bracelet every time I saw her. We installed hidden cameras around our property, focusing on the driveway and entrances. Frank continued his digital surveillance, tracing her online activity to shadowy forums dedicated to identity theft and life impersonation. Her username was Doppelganger. The arrogance of it took my breath away. The break we needed came from a stroke of luck. Ben, while cleaning out the garage, found a small black device tucked behind a box of old Christmas decorations. It was a GPS tracker. She hadn't just been watching our house. She'd been tracking my every move. This explained how she always knew when I was home, when I was out, creating windows for her to be me elsewhere. Instead of removing it, we decided to use it. We planted false information. I started mentioning to Chloe, in casual conversation, that I was planning a girls' weekend at a spa resort a few hours away. I gave specific dates. We then placed the tracker on a long-haul truck heading in that direction. Just as we hoped, during that weekend, Charlotte was seen on security cameras at a high-end mall near the fake spa destination. She was cashing forged checks from my account. She was making my fictional trip a reality, building an alibi for my absence while she moved her plan forward. We had her. On tape, in the act, far from home. It was enough for the police to take our case seriously. We met with Detective Miller, a no-nonsense woman, and laid out all our evidence. The photos, the fake ID, the GPS tracker, the video of her cashing the checks. It's certainly compelling, Detective Miller said, her eyes sharp. But it's still largely circumstantial for an arrest. We need to catch her in a more definitive act. Something that directly threatens you or your family. The threat felt imminent. The digital paper trail Frank uncovered showed she had recently applied for a passport in my name. She was planning an exit. Or she was planning for me to disappear. The confrontation happened sooner than we planned. Lily had a school art show. Ben, Lily, and I were walking out the door when Chloe's car pulled up. She got out, holding a present for Lily. She was wearing my favorite shade of lipstick, a color she'd always said looked terrible on her. "Surprise!" she said, her smile too bright. "I wouldn't miss my favorite niece's big night." Lily ran to her and Chloe swept her up in a hug. Seeing her hold my daughter, wearing my face, my style, my life, something inside me snapped. The careful performance I'd been maintaining crumbled. "We need to talk." "Now," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Ben, sensing the shift, took Lily inside. "Come on, sweetie, let's get your masterpiece ready." Chloe's smile didn't falter. "What's wrong, Char? You seem stressed." "Cut the act, Chloe," I hissed, stepping closer. I know everything. The credit cards, the hotel, the fake driver's license, the GPS tracker on my car. For a split second, the mask vanished. I saw a flash of pure, cold calculation in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by a look of wounded innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about. This identity theft has really messed with your head. You're paranoid." "I have photos of you," I said, pulling out my phone and showing her the mall security image, zoomed in on the bracelet. "I have the fake license." "The police have it all." Her face went pale. The act was over. Her posture changed, her shoulders squaring, her gaze turning flat and hostile. The Chloe I knew was gone. This was the doppelganger. "You always had everything, Charlotte," she said, her voice a low, venomous whisper. "The perfect house, the perfect husband, the perfect life. You never had to fight for anything. It was just handed to you. I was just the pathetic best friend, living in your shadow. So this is what? Revenge?" I asked, my heart breaking and my fear spiking at the same time. "It's a takeover," she smiled, a chilling, empty gesture. "Why settle for being the sidekick when I can have the leading role? Soon no one will even know you ever existed." She turned and got back into her car, speeding away. The threat hung in the air, more real than ever. She wasn't just stealing my identity. She was planning to erase me. The police were on their way to pick her up for questioning, but I had a sickening feeling we were already too late. The game was over. The war had begun. The moment Chloe's car disappeared around the corner, the calm I had feigned evaporated, replaced by a primal, trembling fear. "Erase me." The words echoed in the silent street. Ben came out, his face etched with worry. "What did she say?" he asked, pulling me into a hug. I repeated her words, my voice shaking. "She's not just pretending to be me, Ben. She wants to replace me, permanently." We called Detective Miller immediately and told her about the confrontation. She dispatched a car to Chloe's apartment. Within the hour, she called us back. "She's gone. The apartment is cleaned out. It looks like she'd been preparing to leave for a while. Her computer is gone, and there are shredded documents in the trash. We're putting out a bolo for her and her vehicle. She was in the wind. The predator was now a fugitive, and that made her more dangerous than ever. We were plunged into a nightmare of waiting. Every news report about a car accident made my heart stop. Every knock on the door sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. We kept Lily home from school, telling her there was a bad flu going around. The truth was too terrifying to voice. Frank, the PI, worked tirelessly. He dug deeper into her digital life, the one she'd hidden behind layers of encryption and fake accounts. He discovered she had been slowly siphoning small amounts of money from my accounts for years, building a separate fund. She had a storage unit rented under a fake name. With a court order, the police opened it. Detective Miller called us down to the station to see the contents. It was like walking into a museum of my own life. There were copies of my keys, photos of Ben and Lily that had been stolen from my own albums, clothing identical to mine, down to the same brands and sizes, forged documents, including a birth certificate and a marriage license with her photo next to Ben's. But the most chilling item was a detailed, handwritten timeline. It outlined her plan. The final step was labeled the switch. The details were vague, but it involved a permanent solution for me, making it look like an accident, after which she would step into my life seamlessly. She had notes on Ben's schedule, my mother's maiden name, Lily's bedtime routine. She had studied us like a textbook. Seeing it laid out so clinically, the 20-year friendship reduced to a tactical operation made me physically ill. Ben had to hold me up. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a cold, calculated assassination of a life. The police found her car 2 days later, abandoned at a long-term parking lot at the airport. She had likely switched vehicles, disappearing into a network of pre-planned escape routes. The trail was cold. We had to assume she was still out there, watching, waiting for her moment. We moved out of our house temporarily, staying with Ben's parents in another state. We changed our names legally. Charlotte, Ben, and Lily Miller became Claire, Thomas, and Rose Evans. It felt like letting her win, but it was the only way to truly disappear. The first few months were the hardest. I jumped at shadows. I had panic attacks in grocery stores, convinced I saw her in every aisle. I was grieving the loss of my best friend, my home, and my own identity all at once. Therapy became my lifeline. Slowly, painstakingly, we built a new life. A smaller, quieter, more guarded life. We moved into a rented house in a new town. Thomas found a new job. Rose started at a new school. I continued my design work remotely, under my new name. The fear never completely went away, but it receded, becoming a background hum instead of a deafening roar. We learned to live with the lock on our past, knowing that the ghost of Chloe was still out there, a missing piece of a terrifying puzzle. Years passed. Rose grew up knowing only the story of a bad person we had to hide from. Our lives as the Millers felt like a dream, a story about other people. We had won in a way. We had survived. We had protected our family, but the cost was everything we had been. The best friend's betrayal hadn't just stolen my money or my identity. It had stolen our peace, our trust, and the simple, beautiful normalcy we had once taken for granted. We were safe, but we would never again be the innocent people we were before we learned that the person closest to us was our most dangerous enemy. 5 years. That's how long we lived as the Evans family. 5 years of checking locks twice, of using a P.O. box, of a constant, low-level vigilance that became our new normal. Rose, now 11, had only vague, dreamlike memories of being Lily. We were safe. We were happy in our guarded way, but the ghost of Chloe was always there, a splinter in my soul I could never dig out. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. It was sent to an old, dormant account I hadn't used since the identity theft began, an account only someone from my deep past would know. The subject line was blank. The body contained a single line. I'm sorry. I'm dying. The truth is in the locket. There was no signature. But I knew. It was from Chloe. My hands turned to ice. The locket. The heart bracelet had been a decoy, a symbol of our friendship she used in her performance. But the locket, that was different. It was a cheap silver locket we'd bought together from a street vendor on a school trip when we were 16. We'd promised to keep our deepest secrets inside. I had lost mine years ago. She must have kept hers. The email was a key, thrown back from the grave. She was dying. And she wanted to confess. I showed Ben. His face was a storm of conflicting emotions, anger, fear, and a reluctant pity. It could be a trick, Claire. A way to draw you out. I know, I said. But she's dying. And she mentioned the locket. That's from a time before all this. That's from when we were real. After a long, tense discussion, we contacted Detective Miller, who was now a lieutenant, but had never closed the file. Using the email's digital footprint, they tracked its origin to a hospice facility in a small rural town 3 states away. Her real name wasn't on the register. She was using another alias, but the description matched. We drove there, Ben and I, the landscape blurring past the windows. I felt like I was moving through a dream, hurtling towards the end of a nightmare that had haunted me for half a decade. The woman in the hospice bed was a skeleton wrapped in pale skin. The vibrant, cunning woman I had feared was gone, replaced by this fragile shell. But her eyes, though sunken, were the same. They opened when I walked in, and a single tear traced a path through the wrinkles on her temple. You came, she whispered, her voice a dry rustle. You said the truth was in the locket, I said, my own voice tight. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. My hands trembled as I opened it. Instead of a photo, there was a tiny folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. It was a doctor's note dated over 20 years ago. It diagnosed her with a rare degenerative neurological disease. One that caused, among other things, pathological jealousy, delusions, and erotomania. The delusional belief that someone is in love with you. The final sentence was chilling. Prognosis is terminal. Cognitive and personality deterioration will be progressive and severe. I looked from the paper to her, my understanding dawning with a horrifying clarity. This started when we were teenagers? She nodded weakly, her eyes full of a profound, lucid sorrow. It started as a crush on Ben. Then it became an obsession. With you, with your life. The disease. It rewired my brain. The jealousy, the planning, the double. It felt like a game, a story I was writing. Until it wasn't. Until I couldn't tell the story from reality anymore. She had been sick. Not evil, but sick. The best friend I had loved had been slowly consumed by a sickness that turned her love into a destructive, parasitic obsession. The betrayal wasn't born of malice, but of a mind unraveling. "I'm so sorry, Charlotte," she breathed, using my real name for the first time in years. "The real me? The girl who bought that locket with you? She would have never hurt you. She loved you. She died later that night. We were there." Ben held my hand as I cried. Not for the monster, but for the girl she had been. For the friendship that had been real before the disease stole it from us. We buried her under her real name, in a quiet corner of a cemetery. There was no one else to come. We were her only family in the end. The truth didn't erase the pain or the fear of those lost years. But it did change its shape. The random, senseless evil was replaced by a tragic medical reality. We hadn't been targeted by a monster, but abandoned by a friend who had been lost to an illness no one saw. Back in our new home, I looked at Ben and Rose, my family, our family, forged in fire and surviving against all odds. The ghost was finally at peace. And so, for the first time in a very long time, were we. We had faced the worst betrayal imaginable and emerged, scarred but unbroken, on the other side. The best friend was gone, but the love that built our family was stronger than any lie. The weeks after Chloe's death were a time of quiet, profound disassembly. The why that had haunted me for 5 years had been answered, but the answer was a complex, painful knot of grief, pity, and a lingering sense of violation. I was mourning two people, the vibrant friend of my youth and the innocent life I had lost. We decided as a family to reclaim our names. The legal process to change back from Evans to Miller was simpler this time. It felt like a declaration. We were taking back what was ours. The day the paperwork was finalized, we celebrated. Not with a party, but with a quiet dinner at home. "Welcome home, Lily Miller," I said, raising my glass to my daughter. She smiled, a little confused but happy. We didn't move back to our old town. That life was a ghost, a photograph from another time. But we bought a new house in a friendly neighborhood, and we filled it with light and new memories. We got a dog, a goofy golden retriever puppy that Lily named Sunny. The sound of barks and laughter finally began to drown out the echoes of fear. I started painting again. This time, my subjects weren't dark or abstract. I painted portraits. I painted Ben, his kind eyes crinkled in a smile. I painted Lily, her face smudged with chocolate. And one day, I gathered my courage and painted a portrait of Chloe. Not the doppelganger, but the 16-year-old girl with the cheap silver locket, her smile open and untroubled. I hung it in my studio. It was my way of making peace with all the parts of my past. Ben and I grew closer than ever. The trauma had either broken us or forged us, and we had chosen to be forged. We learned to communicate in a way we never had before, to voice fears and vulnerabilities without shame. One afternoon, Lily found the box of our old life, the Miller life, in the attic. She pulled out a photo album. There were pictures of me and Chloe, our arms slung around each other, laughing. "Who's that, Mom?" she asked. I took a deep breath. It was time. That was my very best friend, honey. Her name was Chloe. She got very, very sick, and the sickness made her do some scary things. But before she was sick, she was the best friend a person could have. Lily considered this, her young mind absorbing the complexity. "I'm sorry she was sick," she said simply, her compassion so pure and uncomplicated. Healed a piece of me I thought was broken forever. The legal and financial mess Chloe had created took years to fully untangle, but we did it. We rebuilt our credit, closed the fraudulent accounts, and secured our identities with layers of protection we never knew existed. We were vigilant, but we were no longer prisoners. On the 10th anniversary of the day we fled our old home, we took a trip. Just the three of us. We went to the beach, a place with no history for us. We built sandcastles, swam in the ocean, and ate ice cream until we were sticky and sunburned. Lying on a towel, watching Ben teach Lily how to skip stones, I felt a peace so deep it was almost a physical presence. The best friend's betrayal had been an earthquake that leveled the world I knew. But from the rubble, we had built a new world. It was a world with stronger foundations, with walls made of resilience, and a roof made of the hard-won knowledge that we could survive anything. I looked at my family, my true inheritance, and I knew that Chloe's sickness had failed. She had tried to steal my life, but she had only succeeded in showing me how unbreakable it truly was. The love I had for my husband and daughter was a fortress she could never penetrate. The ghost was gone, the machine of her deception was broken, and we were finally, joyfully, free. 15 years after the nightmare began, the fear was a distant memory, a scar that had faded to a faint white line. Lily was in college, a bright, confident young woman studying psychology. She said she wanted to understand the human mind, to help people like the woman in her mother's stories. Ben and I were empty nesters, rediscovering the quiet rhythm of a life for two. Our home was filled with my paintings. The portrait of young Chloe still hung in my studio, a permanent, peaceful resident of my past. I had long since made my peace with the tragic duality of her existence. The disease had stolen her from me long before she ever stole my identity. One sunny afternoon, I was in the garden when the doorbell rang. A woman stood on my porch holding a large, flat package. She was a lawyer, she explained, executing the final terms of a will for a client named Clara Evans, one of Chloe's many aliases. My breath hitched. I thought everything was settled years ago. This is a separate item, the lawyer said gently. She left specific instructions for it to be delivered to you on this date. With trembling hands, I took the package inside and opened it on the kitchen table. It was a painting, not one of mine. The style was different, softer, more impressionistic. It was a portrait of me, Ben, and a young Lily, from a photograph taken in our old backyard, a year before everything fell apart. We were laughing, our faces filled with unguarded joy, but it wasn't a copy. Chloe had painted it. She had captured the light in Ben's eyes, the way Lily's hair fell across her forehead, the easy way my hand rested on Ben's shoulder. She had painted us not as objects of obsession, but with a heartbreaking tenderness and love. Taped to the back was a note, written in her familiar looping script, but the handwriting was shakier, from the final days. Charlotte, this is how I will always choose to remember us. This was real. The love was real. I am so sorry for the shadow I cast over this light. Please forgive the girl I was and pity the woman I became. Keep living your beautiful life. It was always yours. All my love, Chloe. I sank into a chair, the tears coming not from pain, but from a deep, cleansing release. This was her final apology, her final gift. In this painting, she gave me back the memory of that perfect, ordinary moment, untainted by what came after. She was acknowledging that the love we shared before the sickness had been the truest thing in her life. I showed the painting to Ben when he got home. He was silent for a long time, his eyes misty. She really did love us in her way, he said finally. What a terrible, tragic waste. We hung the painting in our living room, next to one of my own sunny landscapes. It wasn't a monument to the betrayal, but a tribute to the complexity of the human heart, its capacity for both profound love and profound brokenness. That night, we video called Lily. We told her about the painting. She listened, her intelligent eyes thoughtful. It's sad, she said, but it's also kind of beautiful. It's like she's finally giving you back a piece of what she took. She was right. The painting felt like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. The story was complete. It had horror and fear, but it also had redemption and forgiveness. I look at my life now and I see a tapestry woven with threads of every color, joy and terror, betrayal and loyalty, loss and profound gain. The best friend's betrayal was the darkest thread, but without it, the brighter threads of my family's resilience, my own strength and this hard-won, deeply appreciated peace wouldn't shine nearly as bright. The ghost is no longer in the machine or in the shadows. She's in a painting on my wall, a memory of a girl with a locket, and a cautionary tale about the fragility of the mind. And I am here in a home filled with light and love, a woman who survived the unthinkable and found, on the other side, a life more beautiful and cherished than she ever could have imagined. The painting changed the atmosphere in our home. It didn't bring back the past, but it softened its edges. It allowed us to talk about Chloe openly, not as a monster, but as a complex part of our history. Ben would sometimes point out a detail she'd captured, the way he held his coffee cup, the glint in Lily's eye. And we would share a quiet moment of remembrance for the friend we had lost long before she was gone. Lily's interest in psychology deepened. She wrote her senior thesis on the impact of degenerative neurological diseases on personality and identity, using Chloe's story, anonymized of course, as a case study. Her professor called it brilliant and compassionate. I felt a strange pride. From our family's tragedy, my daughter was creating understanding. She was turning our pain into purpose. As the years rolled on, the vigilance that had once been a necessity became a habit, and then slowly, a memory. We stopped checking the locks quite so obsessively. We made friends in our neighborhood without the initial hidden background check we used to perform in our minds. We lived. Truly lived. On our 30th wedding anniversary, Ben and I took a trip to Italy, a dream we'd had since we were first married. We walked through ancient ruins, ate pasta in little trattorias, and held hands like teenagers. One evening, sitting on a balcony overlooking the Tuscan hills, he turned to me. "You know," he said, his voice soft in the twilight, "I wouldn't change a thing." I looked at him, surprised. "Not even all of it? The fear, the running?" He shook his head. "It showed me what we're made of, Charlotte. It showed me that what we have is unbreakable. The easy life we had before was beautiful, but this one we fought for. This one we built with our own hands from the wreckage. This one is stronger." He was right. The betrayal had been a refiner's fire. It had burned away everything that was superficial, leaving only the pure, strong metal of our love and commitment to each other and our daughter. We grew old together, Ben and I. We watched Lily fall in love, get married, and have children of her own. We became grandma and grandpa, our hearts expanding to hold a new generation. I painted portraits of my grandchildren, capturing their innocence and joy, just as Chloe had once captured ours. Sometimes, when I look at my family, my silver-haired husband, my brilliant daughter, my laughing grandchildren, I think of the alternate reality Chloe had tried to create. A reality where she was the center of this picture. But her plan was doomed from the start. She could copy the external details, but she could never replicate the love. The love was the one thing she could never steal. The one thing that was uniquely and authentically ours. The story of the best friend's betrayal is not a story I would have chosen. But it is my story. And in the end, it is a story of victory. Not a dramatic, explosive victory, but a quiet, enduring one. The victory of a family that refused to be broken. The victory of love over obsession, of truth over lies, and of a peace that was earned through unimaginable struggle. I am an old woman now, sitting in a sunlit room, surrounded by the art of my life. The portrait Chloe painted still hangs on my wall, a testament to a friendship that was both my greatest joy and my deepest sorrow. But it no longer holds pain for me. It holds a lesson about compassion, about the fragile line between sanity and sickness, and about the incredible resilience of the human spirit. The best friend betrayed me, but in her tragic, broken way, she ultimately led me to a deeper appreciation for the beautiful, imperfect, and fiercely loved life I have. And for that, in the quiet of my heart, I can finally say,